Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's so wonderful to see you, and I think there's going to be more people joining us, but they'll just come in, slip in. Um, Thank you so much for coming. It's, as I said, it's great to see you. My name is Joy Rosenthal. I'm the president of One Breath Rising, and we've got our other board members here, EJ Antonio, Rick Brown, Abby London Crawford, and we're grateful to them and grateful to all of you for being part of this. We've been going for a little over 6 years now, almost monthly, presenting what we call world-class artistry in an intimate setting, and you'll see that today is no exception. Um, a couple of things about Zoom. I know everybody's used to Zoom, but I'll just say them anyway. If you're not already on mute, remember to put yourself on mute during the reading. Um, you might want to put it on speaker view. On my computer, it's in the top right-hand corner so that you can see better. And if you have any questions, we're going to be doing a question and answer at the end. I will put up a link a couple of times for you to donate. We ask for a $10 donation, but of course, that's up to you. And now I want to thank our funders. Um, the Garner Glazer Foundation, the Park Slope Civic Council, Poets and Writers, the Fife Dickey Dog Foundation, and our individual donors and our audience. And we have gotten a lot of in-kind support from the 440 Gallery. They've been wonderful. That's where we were doing our in-person events before we went on to Zoom. So I will turn it over to EJ Antonio. And again, thank you. We're so glad you're here and you won't regret it.
Welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you here for this wonderful afternoon of poetry and prose from Mariahadessa Ekere Tallie. I will read you her bio. It has been 10 years since Mariahadessa Ekere Tallie published her first book of poetry, Karma's Footsteps, Flipped Eye Publishing. For this reading, she will take us on a journey through her work from then until now, and will share new work with us. Ekere is the author of the award-winning children's book, Layla's Happiness. Her work for adults includes Strut, Dear Continuum, Letters to a Poet Crafting Liberation. And she is the subject of a short film, I Leave My Colors Everywhere. Ekere creates cinema poems with her husband and self-care posters and healing herbal potions with her daughters. She has a long, quiet blog, The Sage Honey, that she looks forward to updating soon. Ekere is a very proud New Yorker currently living in the lovely state of Rhode Island, where she is a PhD student at Brown University. And so I'm going to start, before Ekere starts, I'm going to read one paragraph of one of the letters that she wrote in Dear Continuum. Dear Continuum, you are right that my art is one form of my activism. This is because I have been the beneficiary of carefully chosen words delivered with love. Words delivered with love by Alex Haley and Malcolm X caused me to look in the mirror one day and stop frowning at my own face. I understood the history of my nose, mouth, and skin, and suddenly I was proud. Ladies and gentlemen, Mariahadessa Ekere Tallie.
Oh, thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And thank everybody who's showing up at 4:44 on a Sunday. Beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. I have a bunch of stuff. I plan on going back and forth between Strut and Karma's Footsteps, right? So, because some of you have been with me for my journey, and some of these poems will be really old to you, and then some of you have never heard anything. And I'm going to read some things from Karma's Footsteps. I'm going to bounce a little bit, and then I'll end with some new, just a couple of new poems, and then I think we might even have a little video to show y'all. Okay, so I'll start out with this very short Ars Poetica from Strut. May the poems be the lifting of heavy things, the putting down of burden, the excavation of laughter and true names, the fists, the inhale, the wild water, the knife, the beginning. That's my Ars Poetica. So I'm gonna really go with my, this is from Karma's Footsteps. This is the introduction poem and it's called Her Voice and it is for Nina Simone. And I always say I wrote this poem when I was listening to this, like it was this whole Nina Simone special. Some of y'all know that's a long thing where they just play Nina Simone song after Nina Simone song after Nina Simone song. And you know, if you listen to Nina Simone over and over, all these different, something's gonna happen, right? Something's gotta happen. And so for me, this poem is what happened. Her voice. Bowl of crushed blueberries, knife edge, cracked calabash, heavy truth, ancient wine, renegade bones, rise up, white wings of doves, tapestry of nerve, daughter of well-aimed lightning. Blinded compromise, nail-like tongue, bitter root, burnt honey, tornado blackness. Bent-backed women walked up her throat, flew straight arrow from her mouth. Mississippi, Gullah, baptism, the Nile, Congo, belly of slave ships, Harlem, potent cocktail of her pitch, black notes. She divined riots on piano keys, exiled and passion and turbulent ritual. She was that sound in the racing heart of thunder. Nina Simone makes that happen. Nina Simone makes these things happen. So I'm going to read you all a poem from my mother called Learning to Swim. For some reason, it just feels right to have survivors in conversation. And this is actually my mother on the cover of this book. I don't know if y'all can see well, but it's my mama right here with this crown on. Yeah. Learning to swim. She was the baby of the family, curious and neon, magic unraveling her singing braids. There was music coming off of her, violins, batas, pianos, and castañetas. Sounds her mama couldn't relate to. Sounds that reminded mama of sin. Imagine Sienna Sunflower Girl, knee-high, southern tinged, tangos and rumbas tickling her feet. Imagine the first time the branch of the peach tree ripped her skin. She'd been caught moving to some rhythm, not born of the church. It was everything. Her sound, her scent, her earth speak, brought the hands and brought the belts and brought the switches down. She tried when she left their house. She tried to conjure her dance again. She tried to hear the whispers under her feet. She pulled watercolors around her waist. She wore amber and amethyst on her wrists and shoulders. She chanted and she wound her way through jazz. But no one could read the smoke signals from her cigarettes. They said death would be sweeter than any of this. And when we met, she was 35 and I was newly born. She was still drowning, but she gave me studios to dance in. Trumpets, screaming magentas, muted blues, congas, tarot cards, modeling clay. She kept judgment in a locked box, too high for me to reach. She stepped aside. My mother stepped aside. She'd evacuated her own dreams, courted death many times. When I met her, she was still drowning, but somehow she took me to the water, and somehow she taught me to swim. Ah, mothers, mothers. Sometimes doing the impossible, right? Sometimes doing the impossible. All right, so I'm gonna go to session 4. Karma's Footsteps, this my first book, is like full of my super kind of heavy things. It's like if I didn't get another book out in life, these were things that I wanted to hand down, in a sense, to my daughters, right? Like the survival things, like the real world out there. So there's some rough stuff here. So this is session 4. See the invisible women, pecan-colored, hunched over conveyor belts, anonymous cinnamon hands passing items over red laser lights. See the invisible women, after hours, behind meat scraps or whirring sewing machines. Who hears there? Who hears there? Who hears their screams break open the night? I've known women stolen by jagged sheets of pain, pelvises smashed, skulls shattered. Where are their names? The news, the outrage. Who speaks your name? Who speaks your name if you are brown and poor and woman, if your body is felled like a stormed, ripped ginkgo tree? But what if we mattered? She whispered once. While we sat for hours in a clinic, uninvestigated, unsolved, undiscussed, unimportant, she was 24. 24 years of dreaming. What if, etched in her easy smile, generous eyes like onyx almonds, she was 24. She vanished like smoke. Her name was never broadcast. Sometimes the hands that claimed her breath sneak into my dreams, and sometimes my own throat burns with bottomless screams. See the invisible women everywhere. Their sweat fuels the engine of the easy life. Their screams break open the night. We do matter, I whispered back. We do. But who hears? So this is this is a piece that I wrote. This tells you how long ago this was. I was in college. Yeah, that 50,000 years ago. I was an undergraduate in college, and I was going to school in Alabama. And for Thanksgiving, it was Tuskegee. So it's like a long train ride to get back home. You know, you got to take trains and all this stuff. It was not easy. It took a long time. It took days actually on Amtrak to get to Tuskegee. Let's say a day and a half or something like this, right? Long trip. And then you had to take a bus or get something. So, you know, you can't just go home, basically. And I couldn't just go home for Thanksgiving break. So my friend Angie, the first year that I was there, only stayed there 2 years, but she told me, okay, you can come to my house for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, okay, cool. So she lived in Mississippi, right over the border. right, of where we were at in Alabama. And so I went, had a good time, had some good food, what have you. And when I went home for Christmas break, I told my father, oh, you know what I did for Thanksgiving? I went to Mississippi. And his whole being just changed. And that was when I found out that our family actually had roots in Mississippi, which was something I didn't know. And I found out that our family had left Mississippi and moved to Missouri. And this is a poem based on the story he told me. And it's called I Was There Once. I was there once. There was something to do, something to crowd the vacant Alabama afternoon. My friend Angie drove the 10 minutes until we crossed the state line. Mississippi. Mississippi. Had I known then, I would have asked her to stop. Had I known. My great-grandfather killed a man, and I love him for it. Had I known, I would have gotten out of that car, caressed that soil, taken it home. I would have asked Mississippi what she saw, how many lynchings, how many rapes, if the vengeance surprised her, if she whisper screamed, run, when my great-grandfather decided, enough. I was there once. Mississippi saw my great-grandmother go home beaten, torn, watched my great-grandfather's eyes cloud, saw the water fall. Enough. He rose from the chair of black, terrorized skin, his reserved seat. Sit quiet, boy. I can spit in your wife, split her open and send her home, see? Enough. I was there briefly once. Mississippi saw tired clench a fist, blood, a fallen body. And our line left the state to escape. I will go back. And when I ask, I imagine Mississippi will tell me she saw some kind of justice, at least once. So that is that. You can imagine I was pretty shocked when my father told me this story, like sometimes family history comes out in wild places. And so I actually did have a chance to go back to Mississippi. I had a chance to go back to Mississippi to do a reading. And it was, you can imagine now I knew the story. So it was very meaningful to me to go back to this state that I had no clue I had a connection with. And I wrote a poem as a follow-up to that one. And it's a very short poem, but it captures how I felt this second time around. And it's called Blue Libation. And it's for Walter Wright Sr. and Mariah Wright, which are my great grandparents. I lit the candle of poem in Mississippi, and in the silence of a blue morning, libation rolled down my cheeks. It was the cotton sheets. My great-great-grandparents' hands and lives bent over small, tough clouds. I slept in the softness of my hotel room, wrapped in a whisper of my history. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm gonna move into all Strut now. I think I have like 15 minutes or so? Am I doing good with time? EJ, yeah? Okay. So I'm gonna move, actually, you know what I might do? I'll go to, because EJ read something from Dear Continuum. And I know that most people on here, there are a lot of amazing writers on here. So I'm going to go to the first letter in Dear Continuum, and then I'm going to move to Strut. That's what I'm going to do. The first letter of Dear Continuum ended up being the reason that a whole book of letters got born. That's a whole other story. Like I wrote this one story, this one piece, I think largely to myself, you know, and it ended up being published on a beautiful website called Vita. Lynn was down with Vita for some time, right? And so after I wrote this, I had a reading somewhere. And I was thinking I should write more letters to young people, you know, especially young people who were doing like social justice work. And so I say young writers, meaning anybody who's young to the craft of writing, you know, anybody who's just starting. And I was thinking about the different challenges. And so I wrote these letters and I read a couple of them at a gig. I don't remember where I was. I was in Texas. I was somewhere in Texas. And this young woman got up and she's like, "Are you going to make a book out of those letters?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I will." And so Dear Continuum ended up being, I don't know, like 12, 13 letters to folks who write social justice oriented work, for folks who are interested kind of in a course. And so a lot of books are listed. There are like 4 reading lists in there. And this was the first letter. You could say the one that popped it off, right? I think the kids say something like that. I don't know what they say anymore. I'm not one. But so this is letter number 1 from Dear Continuum. I got an issue of Poets and Writers in the mail yesterday. I enjoyed what I read, but it was not inspiring at all. It was realistic. It was honest about the uphill battle it is to get a book seen. I know the work of this all too well, but this letter is not about books. This is about voice and the love and armor you will need to get yours heard. When I think about being a writer in 2021, being a writer with a Black woman's voice, as Lucille Clifton said, I am a Black woman poet, and I sounded like one. With no agent, no powerful mentor opening doors, no financial support, no salary, no benefits, then I realized that this is really a crazy path. Deciding to be a writer was beautiful. Writing is beautiful. Deciding that my concerns, dreams, hopes, and voice are valid and committing myself to putting my visions on paper has been a deeply healing experience. This work connects me to people I have never set my eyes on. However, being a writer in a country that does not support art and writing from the heart of my Black woman mama mouth is a struggle that sometimes leaves me speechless. But the point is to exhaust me, us, beyond words, isn't it? So I rest up and speak on. Beloved, this landscape is actually more treacherous now than when I started years ago. And I don't say this to discourage you. I say this because you need to know that you are embarking on the path of most resistance. And if you plan to walk it, you will need to study and you will need to endure. Listen, there is all sorts of color in academic conferences and departments now. Much of that writing is non-threatening and status quo. It's the type of work that could have come from 18th century nowhere. It's work that no one in our communities or families could wrap around cold shoulders or grasp onto in desperate moments or even nod at in faint recognition. And that, we are constantly being told, is poetry. That exsanguinated verse. But you and I both know poetry can be soulful, grounded, gravity defying, and irrepressible. And if your poems walk picket lines, work in soup kitchens, gather dandelions, sweat, jump rope, wear stilettos, shout, give birth, watch the phases of the moon, or know that it is appropriate to put flowers in the ocean on New Year's and pour liquor on the earth before anyone living takes a sip, then supposedly they are not poems. Supposedly you missed the memo on craft and your poems will be returned to sender. Save your postage. Honor your time. Tap your Cimarron blood. Tap the defiant DNA that gives your hair such good posture. Find a community of poets dedicated to writing and walking and being liberation. Study Hughes, Baldwin, Walker, Hurston, Shangay, Baraka, Hayden, Dumas, Bandelli, Johnson, Jermaine, Moore, Rux, Hamad, Clifton, Rich, Boyce, Taylor, Medina, Marubuti, Brooks, Forche, Yasalam, Rojas, Rivera, Knight, Esteves, Galiba, Simmons, Kaufman, Sanchez, Finney, Betts, Espada, Perdomo, and everybody else in this room. This is your work, and there are so many more to study. You will find them as you make your way. Read, write, edit, find a way. Let the poems find their way. Get those words read and heard. Find someone on unbought to publish your stuff. Be really brave and publish the work yourself, but don't stop there. Do not stop. Publish the poets around you. Publish the ones who stand on the front lines and refuse to bow down. Publish those mamas bringing their babies to readings. Publish those poets whose words are in anthologies that they read in the food stamp office. Those lettered poets who can't make the damn rent. Those poets with a day job who organize free workshops and salons. Those poets who never lose their accents. The ones cast off in a spoken word ghetto because they actually dare to connect with an audience. Publish all of them, who are all of us who fight this fight because we are determined to keep the doors open for the next generation, and because we will go crazy without our tongues, without our pens, braiding the strands of our thoughts into some type of beauty, not pressing our voices flat, flat, flat to the white, rageless whisper, not doing that, and paying a heavy price. And so it is. Thank you. Yeah, Dear Continuum is like, obviously, right, like my call to arms, right? And there's so many amazing people in this room right now who know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all have opened doors. Some of you are kicked them in, actually. And I thank you all for that, right? And some of us are attempting to keep the doors open. That's all I can say, right? And let the next folks come through. So yeah, that's from Dear Continuum. I ain't gonna read nothing else from there because y'all see I get hot reading that. So I'm gonna read a couple more poems from Strut, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Sound good? All right, I'll read the title poem from Strut. Strut. After birthing twins, my friend whittled herself back to hourglass. She describes the black sand, her turquoise bikini, pride, seeing herself strut again. I will never wear one again, I say. And then show the pot, the loose skin, the lightning bolts, the rain streaks across my belly. I wear the turbulent body of a stranger, sharp, soft, until the hill of broken muscle announcing life beyond my life. I thank my bones. I thank my broken muscles. I thank the woman I was and the woman I am. Slowly, I learned to strut again. That is Strut. I'm gonna read y'all this poem from Jimi, about Jimi Hendrix, and then I think I'll read a couple of love poems. That's how I'll close it out, because as one of my friends used to say, it's all on the love, right? So yeah. This is for Jimi Hendrix. It's called We Still Don't Know. Who was that hoodoo wrapped in turquoise and scripture? That priest of earthquakes, conjuring white buffaloes through amplified oracle wails. Fire. Tuned ears heard flames, The volcano rained down. Batons and dogs rained down. Fire hoses and bullets rained down. Freedom. The shaman was indigo, was bluesman, was raven, was watching, composing mantras of aloe and steel. Who was that whisperer wrapped in rainbows and sand? Genius, Genie, Jimmy. That's for my man, Jimi Hendrix, right there. Okay, I'm gonna read y'all this. It's funny. In this book, this poem is sideways. Now, don't even ask me like what got into us. If my memory worked, I'd tell you why it's sideways, but right now I don't. Maybe it had something to do with the formatting, and so we had to get a little crazy. This is called My Love for Him Ends the Occupation. My love for him. Inevitable as death, insistent mosquito, redwood roots. A memory in the blood, his glance and honeydew saunters down my thighs. Yes, there is a graceless orange howl that escapes my throat, pulls night curtains across the sky. Behind it, the stage is bare, unset, unsettled. Yes. Black people know how to do more than die. Our kisses steeped long and patient. We conjured each other up, unsettling that we love like this. Move invaders out with raw silk feeling, agogo tongues, uncolonize ourselves with genuine North Star touch. I get my land back. I get my land back now and then when we move in sync. 40 acres of velvet soil, beds of dignified collard greens, rows of ecstatic tomatoes, and yellow corn. I'm not the mule. Out of my house, hopeless feeling like the weather in Leeds. Out of my house. The occupation is over. Our loving moves back in. And then I will end with, this new love poem. Where is it at? There it is. Okay. This is called We Talk. And I mean, all of you in this room, I just know have flirted. I just know it, right? Everybody in this room has flirted. And I wrote this because I was thinking about how sometimes when you like somebody and you're flirting and you're just talking, the conversation doesn't matter what you're talking about. It's the way the things that you're saying are being said, right? Y'all be talking about like, which newspaper to buy, but you're not really talking about the newspaper at all. You know what I'm talking about, right? Let me see some heads nodding because y'all know I see a head nodding. I see that smile. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. That's how you flirt, right? So it's called We Talk. Your eyes erase all trace of land. The dark blue salt of me rushes into you. When I say yes, you show me what you have learned from the wind. Everywhere at once, giggling in my hair, quietly commanding yellow leaves, kite of my skirt to dance. I become a book of yes. I could tell you what we talked about, but it has nothing to do with what we were saying. The words were doors we entered each other through. If I said umbrella, He felt the shifting hips of clouds. The words were rooms. He tasted downpour. Silence, a thick blanket we lay under, renaming the stars. Thank you. Thank you.
So beautiful. Do you want to show the video?
Oh, only, I don't know if we can. I don't even know how to do that. I would love to show it. I don't know how to do it. Do you know how to do it?
I know how to do it.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. All right, so I think we're gonna have a video and then we can do a Q&A. And I really hope all my friends will talk to me. I want to walk barefoot in a place where barefoot has no name. In a place where soul on earth is natural. A place where toes in soil are common as true love, laughter, and birth. I want to walk barefoot in the hills of a hidden holy land. Stare at sunset with people who know sunrise is not guaranteed. In a place where the evening news speaks of tides, the waning moon, and rainforests, wild as Oya's dance. In a place where shoe and umbrella are curse words, where zinnias and pearls adorn every head. I want to walk barefoot in cities without streets, where admiration is a deep silence. Conversations are replaced by the eloquence of eyes. Barefoot in a place where excuses are not enforced in law books, where there is no law, only that which is right. When these places leave tracks, I follow their footsteps, but they always lead to the sands of my own spirit. I stand in the middle of myself, bowing to the Mecca I know, the sight of me, strolling barefoot into my own life, without thieves, without tyrants, trying to control it.
Mm. Wow, Carrie, that was a really beautiful video.
Oh, thank you.
Really beautiful.
Thank you so much, EJ. It's funny looking at it because we did it not last summer, but the summer before, our first summer in lockdown after the uprisings, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And so, you know, I mean, if you can feel what that was like, and Dominique and I just felt like we needed to make something to remind people to have visions, right, for what we want, right, for what we want. So we did that. It was necessary for us, like, to do and to offer.
Well, I'm going to start off our Q&A. Carrie, you know, you're one of the, you're a creative writer and creative in other ways also, but you're a writer who has expanded the definition of family to encompass the family of the creative circle you belong to. some writers, when they write about family, they write about their immediate family, or their, but they don't usually talk about their creative family. And I see that you bring that into the work. So I want you to give us a little bit of, when you started writing, how did the elders influence your, what you call, creative activism?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, EJ. I guess, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do at all. Like, I wouldn't have known that I could do them without the elders. So we could start there, like without the people who I hadn't even met, right? So like I would read, you remember that Broadside Press had put out this book, Malcolm, it was from Malcolm X, and it had a huge, an X on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading that and being like, oh, wow, like, because I had read the autobiography of Malcolm X and it stirred me. And then I saw, oh, there are all these poets who wrote these words, like inspired by Malcolm X. And then I read like Langston Hughes, and then I would read Alice Walker. And so it was funny. I had elders kind of telling me, you can write, before I understood, right, that what it would look like to do that. At that time, also Gloria Naylor, right? I remember the movie, The Women of Brewster Place came out. So there were these things telling me like, hey, you can write, and you can write in any genre you would like to, you can do that. And so those were, it's weird, but those were the first people who were just showing me things. And then I was pretty sure, I just was like, I'm going to be a writer. So that was about 16. So somehow my memory is now getting a little bit crazy, but I reached out. So, you know what? It was through YSB magazine. This is way back in the day, a magazine called Young Sisters and Brothers, YSB magazine. One time they had some article about these different places you could get your work published. And I remember reaching out to a brother, Ira Jones, who ran a publication called Eyeball, and he was in Missouri. And I sent him some work, and he was like, okay, all right, this is all right, And I mean, when I look back at it, it's like, wow, he was being really generous. But he was like, this is all right, I'll publish this, but listen to me, you have to keep reading and you have to keep writing, right? And he didn't stop at that. He actually sent me, I wish I still had this, he sent me a list of all the Black literary journals that I needed to be reading so that I could become a better writer. Right. I remember Obsidian was on that list. I remember Callaloo was on that list, and it was handwritten. Right. And so I kept that list with me for a long time. Like, okay, this is what I'm going to use in order to become a better writer. Right. And he also told me, because then we spoke on the phone, he told me, oh, you have to like read your poetry out loud and go to poetry readings and stuff. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not reading my work out loud. You know what I mean? Like, my idea was that you should be in your house and you should write. Like, that was my vision. I could be in my house writing and you'll go to a bookstore and get my book. I had no idea how much, right, how deluded I was. But so he helped me along to understand that. And then I got on with African Voices, and Carolyn, who's my age though, would introduce me to everybody. And that's somehow, like, I know for a fact, I met Cheryl Boyce Taylor, like, through some African Voices things. Lady Kaliba introduced me to you, EJ, right? Like, I mean, it was these circles. And then I would see Luis Reyes Rivera, and then Amiri Baraka, and then Sandra Maria Esteves, and all these people just by being on the scene. You know what I mean? So it was about also being in a place and then making contact with folks who were open and, who were gonna like show you the ropes and who were gonna tell you the truth too. Like, that's cool, but you got to read more, or that's cool, but you got to write more. And so, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even be doing this. And I often say that Cheryl brought me out of retirement. Cheryl Boyce Taylor is in the room, an amazing poet. And I stopped writing for a long time. Cheryl Boyce Taylor, amazing poet and writer. I have her book right here on the bed a second ago. But yeah, I stopped writing for a while. That's another thing. Once I had my children, I was really focused on raising them. And so I knew a book of mine would come out eventually, but I wasn't focused on that. And Cheryl saw me and she was like, oh, you could do a reading with this place called the Mom Egg. And I'm like, the Mom Egg? And so that felt comfortable for me, right? Yeah, Golda, because I met Golda at one of those readings. And then Golda booked me for a reading at the cafe that's now closed in the village, right?
Cornelia Street. Yeah.
That's right, at Cornelia Street Cafe. And I was like, maybe I am still a poet. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not, the elders didn't help me once. The elders helped me like repeatedly. Like it just keeps happening, you know? So Cheryl brought me out of retirement, and I would say I still have that flyer, Golda. Y'all pulled me out of that. Yeah, so I'm just so grateful. So many great people in this room. Some of my professors are in this room. Ruth Saxton and Carlota Caulfield, like, who nurtured my creativity even when I was I was an MFA student, but it doesn't mean that people nurture your creativity, right? I mean, that might sound really weird, but it's like you're supposed to take classes, get this thing, and write this stuff. And Carlota would be like, yo, we're going to have a reading in San Francisco. You know what I mean? Okay, we're going to do a reading at Cafe, and we would invite writers over. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful for all these beautiful people who helped me.
Well, how long do you think it took you to develop your voice as a poet?
It is possible. I mean, I think that my voice is it evolves, it keeps moving, but I would say Strut is probably like, I think that book, it's got a lot of joy in it, and it's still got a lot of bearing witness in it. There's something different about Strut. I think that some of my humor manages to come through in Strut, whereas maybe in the first book, I was like, I cannot be funny. Shit is just too serious. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like in Strut, I was able to get across like the urgency of wanting to live, right? Wanting to be able to live in my skin, but also like the joy of sensuality, what it is to be in my body, what it is to be in a changing body. Like, I think I started to give myself more permission. And I think that's the thing. It's like, writing doesn't have to just look like this because you are serious and you want change, right? Writing can look like many different things. And so I think I started to really like get much stronger in my voice with that. And I think that Dear Continuum helped me with that. And now it's weird being in grad school. I've had a couple of moments where I was like, I don't know what's good. I don't know if anything's good anymore. And one of my advisors said, yeah, but that's because you're going through this process of learning how to do academic writing, and that pulls the rug out from under you. And so I lost my ability to know if a piece was good. And now I feel like I'm getting it back. Like within the last couple of weeks, I wrote something recently. I was like, oh, that's it. I can feel the thing that tells me that's what I really want to say, So I think I have my voice. But I think I'm also like opening to so many new things that my voice is shifting. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Everybody's evolving continuously.
Yes.
I'm going to open it up. Anybody out there have any questions that they want to, feel free, unmute yourself, jump right in. So Ekere, are you working on a new book?
Oh, no.
No.
I know. I'm not supposed to say that, right? I'm not supposed to say that. I will say that I'm going to answer that for real. I think I'm just writing. I'm writing poems. I'm writing poems again, which is a wonderful thing. I have a new children's book that will probably be out in a couple of years, and working on children's books is pretty intense. I've got like a bunch of manuscripts that I thought were finished. And recently I realized, oh girl, you need to humble yourself. Them things is not finished. You need to do some revision. You need to go back to the drawing board. So I have like children's literature has really grabbed my focus. And so I'm working on a couple of manuscripts. I think there's another poetry book in there. And then I have to write a dissertation, right? So that's a whole other thing. I got to write. Yeah. Yes, Golda.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, Golda. I'm almost to that point. Like I have to write my dissertation.
I know. I lasted one semester at Pine Manor, and I am in awe of you. But Brown is good. because there's the influence of RISD.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a wonderful combination. Have you thought of taking anything at RISD, an art course?
Yes. How did you know that? See, that's a good question. Yes, Golda.
Oh my gosh.
No, I have, something I'm thinking about because I'm doing performance studies in theater. I'm thinking a lot about theater as well. And I did attempt to write a play. It was not very good, but I didn't care because I'm learning. This is another thing, y'all. I'm learning to enjoy process. Like there's people in here like my friend Mahmoud, who's an amazing fiction writer. Mahmoud has known me for a long time. And I would just be like, I got to put out work. I got to put out work. I got to put out work. And now I'm like, I am not a machine, right? I do not have to like just, produce in this way. Like I can actually sit and write and process and mess up and go back and go deeper. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm learning that my way of writing doesn't have to be driven by capitalism and its output and its insistence that I prove my relevance by publishing all the time, And so I'm kind of in process, with a lot of different things, like thinking about different genres even, and going back to beginner's mind, right? And and that's okay, I think,
I have a question.
Yes, love.
So I feel like we've met at so many spaces when you were like, I'm not writing right now. And I have to tell you, when you left for Brown, you were like, I'm not doing poetry. I was so upset, but I never told you. And when you told me this weekend that you were writing poems again, I was so happy. But my question is, where do you find the time to take care of a family of 5?
Oh my God.
With a very young daughter and go to school and a husband and a new house? How are you doing? Where are you finding time to write? Not schoolwork, but poetry and other kinds of literature, creative writing.
Cheryl, you are so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I get mad about art. I mean, you know that. And I sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? I just need to focus on something else for a while. And that's probably why I said that I was not gonna. I know I get like that. You're right. I'll be like, nah, I ain't doing that poetry no more. And but poetry shows up. The only reason I could actually pass my comprehensive exam was because of poetry. I want to say that I started one of my essays with a Lucille Clifton poem. Okay. And then I included pieces of my own poetry. And then I started to include my poetic voice. So that's another thing that's funny, right? I might think like, no, that's enough of that. I need to eat and I need to feed my family. And poetry is like, but I nourish you. I know I don't feed you in that other way, but I nourish you, right? So it always comes back. But I think I find the time. There are a couple of things. I mean, I have you all in my life encouraging me, and I have an amazing husband, Dominique Sendai Ganza, who like always supports my work and supports my ideas. And I mean, y'all saw the video. We did that video together, right? So having someone in my life who is like, this is you, and you need room to do you is critical, right? Like how many people do we know who have partners who try to stifle them? So I don't have that. And then I think the other thing I have that I am often, I almost never mention, but I'm gonna mention it here because I need to just come out of the closet and not be like this, is that I meditate. I'm very serious about my meditation space, my prayer space. I have a space for my ancestors and I sit there. And often in the sitting, which is daily when I'm really up on my stuff, I write there. I write in my journal. And so when I write in my journal, the creative work also can come out sometimes. So that's that's where I find the space. You know, that's where I find the space. One of my newer friends here, Reed, knows I like to dance a lot, and sometimes poems come out of that. Yeah, poems come out of that dancing. I wrote a poem recently about a space that Reed and I dance in. So yeah, but I would say that prayer meditation space is where a lot of the creative work comes.
I have a question about the Mississippi poem. That sounded like a really painful poem to write. And so I'm wondering, how do you take care of yourself when you're writing something like that?
Oh my God. You know, it's funny. Karma's Footsteps is full of poems like that. It's and yeah, that's a good question. I would think I think that the prayer again and the meditation is really helpful in that. And I think like yeah, you bear witness to some things. You live through some things. I know most of us in here have lived through some hard things, but it's a matter of there there are a couple of things. I would say don't write something and share it until you're ready. Why don't I start there? Right? Like sometimes people write things and they're breaking down when they're reading them. And I would say if you're really, really, really breaking down when you're reading a thing, it might not be time to offer that, or that might not even be the form that you need to offer it in. That's one thing, right? Like I think one way to take care of yourself is to know when it's time to offer a thing. Does that make sense? And so at the point where I can write a thing, I can probably share it. But that's just me. You know, I have other poems about, you know, violent sexual assault or other things. And I couldn't write them in a form that I wanted to put them on a page and read them in until I had processed it, if that makes sense. So, you know, I guess knowing when your work is still it's part of your healing process, or when it marks, I don't know want to say the end, but when it marks a turning point in your healing, right? Then it's okay to offer. And there are poems I didn't read because I'm not in the headspace to read them. Right. There are other hard poems in that book. And I'm just like, nah, I'm not reading that today. I'm not in the mood, you know? So knowing where you can go. I hope that answers the question. Does that answer it, Joe?
Yeah, that's important. Thank you. Thank you.
Abby, did you have a question?
Yes, you're amazing. And I just was very moved by what you wrote. And I was just curious about your attempts at playwriting. You said you were thinking of doing this, or you've made attempts and I was curious about what sustained you or moved you forward in the writing in this new genre. Has poetry assisted you in this, or your other your children's books, or I'm just curious about what's feeding you now,
Yeah.
in opening you up to a new way of writing.
Yeah, Abby, thank you for that. That's a great question too. Yeah, I think because I was, you know, it's my, believe it or not, it's the PhD program. Because I had somebody, they did something they probably shouldn't have done, but they let me teach MFA students. You know, if they wanted to keep me theoretical, they should have kept me away from the MFAs. But they had me like TA for MFA, right? A teaching assist as a teacher for an MFA class. And then they had me actually co-teach the dramaturgy class. And dramaturgy is a really wide field where just so people, I had never heard of dramaturgy, all right, until I went to grad school. But it's like sometimes you're the one who knows the history of a script better than anybody else. Sometimes you're the one who helps to usher a play onto the stage in a different way. You might be the person who knows like, you know, a lot about you can feed the director, let's put it like that, and the actors in ways. And so I did dramaturgy for a piece called Fefu and Her Friends by Maria Irene Fornes. And I also co-taught a dramaturgy class. And I was reading all this August Wilson, and August Wilson had me hyped. You know what I'm saying? August Wilson, I'm like, yo, you can do things in a play that you cannot do
August
any,
Wilson.
yes, you can do things in a play you can't do in any other form.
Yeah.
And so I got really excited and I was like, I want to be like August Wilson, And so I started trying to write plays. But I mean, come on, I know better than to think that I'm gonna put a pen to a paper and be August Wilson. But I did try. It was a bad attempt, but I did try. And
But we don't want you to be August Wilson. We want you to be
What
Ekere.
That's right.
and that's what I understand too. But it was like I just realized like we can do so much with our words in the air and in the mouths of other people. Like that's what I realized, Abby. Like and I could have a set and I could, so it was like all those things that, and then there's also Pura Belpre, a librarian, a Puerto Rican librarian.
Yes.
There's an award named after, and she did amazing work, right, with the New York Public Library. And she started with these puppets, and she told folk tales from her home in Puerto Rico, and then she started writing books. And so I'm thinking, because of my work at Brown about embodiment, and I'm thinking about other ways to get things across, right, even if they're literary. And I think that's what I think children's books did that. They got me visual, and then studying plays got me thinking about the body and how we can hear voices and people and see them. So yeah, I mean, y'all pray for me.
Wow. Yes.
Yes. Anybody else? Come jump right in.
Yes. Can I add my vote for you to write plays?
Yes, Mahmoud.
Because, I mean, when I met you, you had snuck into the fiction program at the MFA.
I know.
So, I mean, you were writing fiction in those days, but you're a poet. You are, a terrific spoken, poetry performer. And, from the fiction that I remember reading, you have a, pretty, fascinating way of opening up narratives. I think plays, can bring all of that in one space. And so I think, I would definitely, add my vote for you to venture more into plays.
Oh, thank you, Mahmoud. Yeah, that's I appreciate you reminding me of that. I gave Cheryl is familiar with me giving up on stuff, right? Yeah, I stopped writing fiction too. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, right? But I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point. I'm gonna try again. Thank you. You see what y'all are doing? 2022. I'm gonna try to write a little, even if it's 10 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to go crazy. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. If I could get a good 10-minute play together, that would be nice. And I appreciate what you've said, Mahmoud. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, Ekere, you always have to remember that everything that you've learned over these years, the different types of writing you've delved into, the poetry, the spoken word, the visual, the whatever, at some point, even though you say, oh, I stopped writing fiction and I stopped writing poetry, I stopped writing this, and now I want to write a play. Eventually, there's going to come a point in time when all of that is going to coalesce together, and you're going to go, oh,
yeah,
that's why that's why I needed to know about cinematography. That's why I needed to know about expanding a character through fiction. That's why I needed to know the economy of words and poetry.
Yeah.
That's what, because I find that even with myself, as time has gone on, there have been things that I have done in the past. I've done photography, I've done art, visual art, I've done all of these things. It all coalesces into the poetry. Because the same eye that I was using for the photography is the same eye that I'm using in the writing. The same use of color and texture that I was using in my visual art, painting, carving, whatever, that all still works into the textures and the colors of the poem. So nothing is wasted that you've learned, even if you're not doing it right now. But at some point, all of that is going to coalesce and you're going to sit there and go, oh, because it's going to hit you like that all of it actually came together.
Yeah. I so appreciate that. This is why we need our mentors and our elders around us, right? Seriously, for those of us, like, thank you for that, EJ. You're right. I've experienced that sometimes in the classroom where I go, oh my God. So it, all of these things that I like, I can share with my students. But what you're describing, I cannot wait to experience that creatively. I really thank you for that. Thank you.
It really is an interesting thing when you, and if you're an introspective person, it really comes to the forefront, like even the music that you listened to when you were a child. You lived abroad for a while. Even that's going to play into whatever that culmination is.
Yeah, I believe that. That's so wild. Yeah. I could see that. Some of the voices that I was working with were, they were voices of people, young people and older women who had done a variety of things and were trying to make things work in gentrified Brooklyn, I believe, or they might have been in Harlem. Actually, they were trying to keep their restaurant open. And I feel like all these different experiences came into their voices. Like, I know that the voices were strong, the narrative arc was not, right? Like, I know that, but you're right. It was voices I was hearing. It was experiences that I was having with my daughters. It was things I was seeing around me in New York. It was all that. So I feel you. I definitely feel you. I had one lady who was she was a dancer, and I could just see her, like her elegance, and she was older. She was an older woman and she was still dancing. And so there was that also, right? Like older than probably in her 50s or maybe 60s, like, right? And I could just see her.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Layla was not the first one to introduce us.
Who introduced us first?
Cheryl.
You see, look at Cheryl.
You know where she introduced us at? Cheryl was doing a reading on the Lower East Side. And you came to the reading with the girls in stroller, and I read, and then you came up to me and you were like,
I can't believe it.
You're the voice on the radio.
Yeah, I was crazy about you.
You were listening to Luis Reyes Rivera on the radio, and he had me on. And when you came to the reading and realized that I was that voice on the radio,
I was done, because you and Golda had gone on that show together. I remember you and Golda you and Golda had gone on Perspectives together, and I lost it. I remember that. You know what I'm saying? When I met you, and it was crazy because I was like, I remember, I like to fangirl out so people know how I appreciate them. No, that's true. I think it's important, right? Sometimes I'm very sometimes I can't even talk to people who I admire. But no, that's true. That's true. I've met people I admire and I can't say anything to them, but please sign the book. And I just stare at them,
But that points out that when I say about the circle of the family of the creative circle that you belong to, at that time that I met you, I had not met Layla yet.
Oh, wow.
But I knew Louis. I knew Cheryl. And they were introducing me to people. And as it turns out, I'm always amazed when I meet other poets who are in the circle, and you're like, oh, you know them? Because you don't know them in relation to those other people. You know them in relationship to other people that introduced you to them.
It's crazy.
So if the circle becomes, the circle is out there, and you don't know where you land on the circumference of the circle.
No, you do not.
And then at some point you're in the center, and then you realize all of these people are in this circle.
Yeah. No,
and you manage in your work to bring that circle, that family of the creative circle into the work. I was so glad when you wrote Dear Continuum. I'm sitting there reading because I'm reading it and I'm going, yeah, that's exactly what Lewis would have said. And you know, so it's like you actually captured all of the things that they have been telling us all of those years, whether we had actually met them or not. And I was like, and I was so glad that you wrote it because it's now in writing somewhere. Somebody could actually go pick up this book and read it and get an understanding of what those elders, some of whom are still with us, some of whom have passed since you wrote this book, what they were about and what knowledge they imparted to those of us that are still here on this side of the circle.
EJ, I mean, you already know that, you know, y'all know this has been an emotional weekend, like reunions with people I love and things like this, because I'm in New York, right? And just you saying that also does make me emotional because I feel like Dear Continuum was something that came out of my, it was my heart. It was everything. I put a lot into that book, and that book wouldn't have even been published without community, because Frank X. Walker actually put the money up for this book to exist in the world. Okay, so that's something important to know. The book would not exist without Frank. And you know, I mean, I ain't seen a dime from the book, and I don't know that anybody even reads the book. Do you know what I mean? And so when you say that, it's like, wow, somebody actually received what I was.
Well, I think you'd be surprised at how many people actually read the book. I mean, I have dog-eared pages from when I was reading the book. You know what I mean? So, but you know, and just so you know, Frank is going to be our One Breath Rising speaker for January. So you might want to, you know, join in on that call.
No doubt. That's so crazy and so beautiful. And it goes to what you're saying about the circle, because Frank said to me, this book has to happen. And his wife copy edited the book. Shauna Morgan, she copy edited the book, huh? And so that was a real family piece. And I remember when I read it at a space called The Watering Hole, and I remember saying, I don't know when this book will ever come out. There ain't no money, right? But I was just sharing the pieces from it. And Frank was like, oh, this book is coming out, you know? And so he made that possible. But yeah, you're right. You don't know who's reading the book. You know, I mean, I feel that way about all the books. I'm like, ain't nobody reading these books, but whatever. Somebody's reading the books.
Somebody's reading the books. There are people out there reading the book.
I want to thank Joy and EJ. This kind of session is family.
Mm-hmm.
I can look at everybody here. The only good thing that came out of Westchester Community College was my meeting Cheryl and her mother.
Oh, wow.
When I made my students go to poetry readings, I taught speech there. I hated that college. And there I met Cheryl. I mean, oh my God, today is like a family of creativity, the connections. I was thinking about A. Van Jordan, who when I studied with him, he made it like a film, zoom in on it. What do you see like a film? Everything we experience happens in our writing. I just want to thank you, Joy, EJ. Zoom is not my favorite, but holy cow, I wouldn't miss this.
So thank you, Golden. And thank you, Cheryl, because Cheryl she's a hub in the middle of that circle.
Thank you.
And she made a lot of meetings of people coming together happen over the years. So, well, I think we're at the end of our time, and I'm going to turn it back over to Joy. And I want to thank Ekere for reading and having this discussion with us today. And next month, we're going to have LaConte Dill, who is one of my writer women friends, group. We all write together. I think you're going to really be wowed by her work. So I encourage everyone to sign up for that next month. And in January, we're going to actually have Frank X. Walker from Kentucky, and he's going to do his reading. And we're just in for some real treats going into the end of this year. So I'm going to turn it back over to Joy, who's going to take us out.
Well, thank you, everybody. This has been really fantastic. And what an incredible question and answer. What an incredible reading. So thank you all. I just want to quickly mention, Golda, thank you for thanking me and EJ. Rick and Abby are also on the board and also making this happen. And we've had a lot of help along the way. This was so great. And so the next one is December 12th, I think.
Yeah.
And so come back, LaConte Dill, who I think just joined us, will be on. And just so you know, if you have us in gallery view, there's more people on, or there were more people on than you can see, because there were a lot of people had their things off. So we had a really good house tonight. I did put a link to the website in the chat, but it's onebreathrising.org. So if you'd be good enough to donate, that helps us it goes a long way to helping us bring wonderful poets like this. We've got a great lineup, and this was certainly one of them. So thank you so much.
And you make it easy, Joy, by including your address, so we can just write you a check and put
yeah. Yeah,
I love it.
It's all on the email. And you'll all get the email tonight. Thanking us. I'll put a link in. All right.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. Ekere, thank you. This was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right,
night, everybody.
Be well.
Stay warm.
Get home safe, Ekere.
Thank you.
Abby, thank you. Good to see you. Why, Cheryl. Oh my gosh.
So good to see you all. Oh, Professor.
Oh my gosh.
So sweet of you to show up, Reed, Golda, Cheryl. Oh my gosh. It is so sweet for y'all to show up. Oh my gosh. It's just so beautiful. And the 5'10" person, whoever that is, I don't know, but thank you for being there. It's crazy to see my professor here, y'all.
You don't remember the line when we were reading at Mom Egg?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, Mom Egg, just all of this. This is just so great. And this is like bringing together all these New York, California mothers and daughters in writing, in books, mothers and daughters in novels. Oh my God. And in my dancing world. Just so thankful to all of you.
I'm telling you, my next life, I want you or Cheryl to be my mom.
Okay.
Sorry, Jay, you're too strict.
So everybody,
my gosh.
Thank y'all so much. I have to go and finish packing my bag so we can drive back to Providence. I know.
But y'all get there safe.
Yes,
Thank
safe
you.
journey.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'll be sending messages, and I hope to see everybody soon. And yeah,
We don't want to leave.
I know we don't.
Golda, I just want to tell you, I think I'm done with mothering. The last time around was too much. I'll be an auntie this time.
Oh my gosh.
I feel you on that
But
one.
I've been mothered by you gals in this life, and I thank you for helping me stay healthy.
Oh, Golda, you're amazing. You help us stay healthy with all that humor.
Oh,
I can't, Syrian sister.
oh, nobody wants to go.
I know. I'm gonna
That's
have
okay. Joy is going to cut off
Bye.
this call.
Bye, beauties.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Joy,
Bye.
EJ.